Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah. Welcome again. I was having some doubts as to the YouTube streaming, and so I had to delete or disconnect the previous video. And I'm back with you again here this afternoon for the class itself. So, alhamdulillah, again, for those who are joining, we thank you for joining this afternoon. We thank you for your time and cooperation. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our presence and allow us to enrich ourselves as we immerse in our self rectification process. Self development, self rectification is a process. It doesn't happen because you live somewhere or because you know something. It's an effort. And as I was saying in the previous video, we all need to make that level of effort to make it possible. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it a success for us and make this a worthwhile endeavor. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. So, without further ado, we are going to go into our next topic of the children. If you recall, we have been discussing uh, the upbringing of children, and Subhanallah, it is the most strenuous task in the home is to raise children. And if you look at the different avenues we have accessible in our society, that alone tells a true story. People have babysitters and tutors and teachers and schools and after school programs. And then after that, we have, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, karate class and swimming classes and so many different programs surrounding a child. It's all evident of the fact that the children are not only a very valuable asset to us in our society, but it requires a lot of work. And that work, it all goes down to how much you or I, as a parent, are willing to put in that much work. It's tough. There's no doubt it is very, very tough. But it needs to be done. Now, no one is saying that in Islam you should raise your own child. That means your child should not be exposed to education or programs, tutoring, or whatever else. It means that you should be the manager of their schedule. You should be the one to ensure that wherever your child goes and whoever is assisting you in raising the child has the same values and morals that you would like to see incorporate within them. Because if you don't see those values incorporate within them, then that means that we really lost out when it comes to what our children could have developed, could have become, and could have experienced through this enriching process. So, beyond what a person is teaching is their demeanor, their values, their morals, and their ethics. These things, as a Muslim, we're taught to look into and not be swayed away because of a person's abilities uh, in the absence of their character. They could be smart, they could be a good tutor, but if our child is spending time with that teacher and tutor, ultimately their ways and their actions and their habits do rub off on the children. So, no doubt it's a very tough process, it's a very tough responsibility. But alhamdulillah, we have authors of such who give us enlightenment and assist us through the light of Quran and Hadith onto how we can simplify the process and make it something that we can fulfill, inshallah. So, if you remember, our last discussion last week was in reference to someone who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants daughters. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants someone daughters and He raises them well, they will be a means of that person's paradise, the father's paradise, the parent's paradise. And a Sahabi said three is a lot. What about two? The Prophet ﷺ said two also. Then someone said one, and the Prophet ﷺ said one. Why was there a special preference given to daughters? Because in that time in society, girls, women had no status in society. The whole purpose was to reestablish, and that doesn't mean that those virtues are non-existent now. No, the virtues still stand, but we are still struggling in a world where women are put down and not given the same regard as men are, or girls are not given the same regard as boys are. And in the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're equal. In their spiritual duty in Islam, they're equal. And why is it that we still as a society suffer is a big question mark that looms over my head, and I'm sure your head also. So the author wrote that in a Muslim family, And in the true Islamic family, girls are protected, loved, and respected in the warm bosom of her parents, especially her mother. A girl will always find protection and care no matter how long she stays in the home of her parents, brothers, or other family members who support her, whether she's married or not. Islam has guaranteed girls a life of protection, pride, and support, and has spared them from a life of humiliation, need, want, and being lost, such as is the lot of women living in societies that have gone astray from the guidance of Allah. In those countries, when a girl reaches the age of 18, she is bereft of the warm parental guardianship and protection to face the hardships of a life filled with difficulties and risk at a time when she is most in need of protection, compassion, and care. So, we talked about this, my fellow sisters, and subhanAllah, this is a very clear cut evidence of the fact. This is clear cut evidence of the fact that we as a society have lost our moral compass. This is not just children who say, but matter of fact, even parents say that once a child is 18, out of the house, get out and go live your life. And there's this thought that you're freeing them, and there's a thought in them that they are becoming freed. But free to what? Yes, if the world was free and everything was free and housing is free and groceries are free and you didn't have to work, then it sounds like a good plan. But what the author is saying is that when they reach that age, yes, they are mature and yes, they are able and yes, they have abilities and they can stand on their 2 feet. No one's saying they cannot. But it's the most needy time for them as human beings to understand the society. If you have not taught your daughter the ins and outs of society, what to look out for, what are red flags, how to make money, how to open an account, how to balance their budget, if you've not taught your child these things, then let it be known it's not going to be of benefit for them. It's actually going to end up being harmful. You take them out of your house and tell them to go get their own apartment or dorm and live their life. You've put them in a position where they've gone from comfort into full-fledged struggle. I wouldn't want to say suffering, but struggle. And while they are pursuing their post-grad education to become whatever they want in college and university, they end up being scarred with such a tough life. And once they're scarred with that tough life, it's very hard for the reminiscence of that scar, the signs of that scar to vanish over time. It remains on them. And when they get married and when they have their children, it's just a psychological impact. No one's saying they shouldn't study. No one's saying they shouldn't go out and work. But we have to stop this mentality where at a certain age you need to get out of my house and go live your life. It's not like a toaster where we're toasting bread and once it pops out, out it goes. This is not how the mentality should be. Every single home, every single family, every single person has a unique circumstance. So this 18 and out mentality needs to be questioned. And if your child wants to leave the house at 18 or you want your child out of the house at 18, make sure you prepare them for the real world. The real world, you and I know, is not a good world. It's a very tough world out there. And it's important that we are transparent with our children and we prepare them for that. So the author talks about this really problematic culture that exists at one time in a certain part of the world, but now it's global dominance. This mindset is everywhere, and so let's recap on this. How we treat our children, especially our daughters, is evidence of how we have invested our time and effort into making them into good human beings. I always tell people that their children is an investment that's less than a house mortgage. House mortgages are usually 30 years, 20 years. If you're lucky, you could do 10 and 15, but it's usually 20, 30. And subhanAllah, your children are an investment for 18 years. If you do it right for 18, you'll be able to do right for life and for their life. But if we can't figure out these 18, then we've done something really, truly wrong to them, and that's not right. That's just not fair for them. There's a great difference between the laws of Allah, which came to bring happiness to mankind, and the imperfect man made laws, which cause nothing but misery. This is a very important point. The author is stating that the laws of Allah, the premise and basis for them is to bring about happiness, tranquility, and peace in the home. Anything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about when it comes to the house, when it comes to the family unit, when it comes to parents and children or vice versa, it's all about bringing goodness and happiness into the world, and not to bring about misery and a burden of pain to the people. It comes as no surprise that in the West, as a result of these materialistic laws, we see armies of promiscuous young men and hordes of unfortunate, miserable, unmarried young mothers, the number of which is increasing exponentially by the day. Remember, I told you last week, this book was written a long time ago, and of course, it was translated, I think, in 1995. But if you understand a point here, he's saying that we've created such a society that people have become so miserable in their own selves that they cannot find happiness even with someone else. So if there was someone who was scarred in their life because of the trials and traumas of being pushed out into the real world without preparation, it's like taking a child who hates swimming and throwing them in the deep end. You could have thrown them into the shallow end, which is like half a foot or 1 foot of water, and they could have at least acquainted themselves with water. What we do is we keep them home and then we throw them right out. It's like we spit them out. And when you spit them out in society, it scars them. It really scars the children. We do not know, for those parents who have children in universities and colleges, or who are single and they're working in different states and cities where you can't see them, you really don't know how much they are struggling. They can have the money, they can have a job, mashallah, but it's a struggle because human beings have not been created by Allah to live like this. You can say, well, the world is functioning, and I'm not going to disagree with you, because the world is currently functioning like that. What the outcome will be is yet to be seen. And so when we understand this point that the author is making, that it results in single life, it results in unhappy marriages, it results in children who then don't see both of their parents, this is a problem that needs to be addressed. So we move on to the next chapter, inshallah, in this book, and that is, she does not invoke against her children. Yes, as a mother, you get frustrated. There's times when you're agitated. There's time when you are losing your mind because things are tough that day, and that's perfectly fine. We're all humans here, and it's only fair that we speak in context of human nature. It is what it is. So the author says here, the wise Muslim woman does not invoke against her children. What does that mean, invoke against her children? There is dua and then there's curse. And in Urdu they say dua and badwa. Badwa means a curse. And so invoking for, that means you're praying for someone. Invoking against means you're cursing someone. A wise Muslim woman does not invoke against her own children, heeding the words of the Prophet Muhammad. What do we all say? Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who forbade such invocations for fear that they are answered by Allah. Think about this. When we curse, those curses can become true. They can be accepted by Allah. If you're telling your child they're in Urdu, they say Beokuf, Nalaik, Kamina, or they say in Arabic Majnoon, or we say in English, whatever people call their children, you're dumb, you're stupid, whatever you say, you know, these curses could actually become true. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam forbid the women and the parents from such, because there is a fear that it may be answered by Allah. This was stated in a lengthy hadith narrated by Jabir ibn Abdullah radiallahu ta'ala, in which the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, do not invoke against yourself or against your children or against your wealth, in case you say such words at a time when Allah will answer invocation. Let me explain this here. There is a time in the day where anything said, asked, is given. Okay? There's a moment of time in the day, and there's a chunk of time in Jumu'ah, the day of Friday. You invoke, Allah gives you what you're asking for. The Prophet ﷺ knows that. And so he's telling us, do not curse yourself. You know, sometimes people say, I wish I was dead. You shouldn't curse yourself. Or they say, my children or my spouse, or they say the house or the property or the wealth. Do not curse yourself, your family, your wealth. Why? Because it may come true. In that case, those words may be said at the time when the acceptance is there, and that's what will happen. So many a times, our emotional state leads us to destroying everything we have. And you know who's so happy about that? Shaitan. Shaitan is so happy. He is so happy because he's accomplished a long thought out goal. When he sees a happy family, a successful family, a family that finds joy and happiness, he wants to break it, but he can't just bring a bulldozer and tear down the house. So what he does is he creates within it jealousy, animosity, hatred, frustration, and then we start saying things, and those words result into actions, and those actions result into bitterness, and that bitterness results in separation in the home, that people don't eat together, don't talk together, and then he makes cursing become the norm in the house. And one day he knows that curse is going to correspond with the time, and everything will be gone. So my fellow sisters, ask yourself, is it worth that we destroy our own lives by our own tongues because of our own actions and because of our own malice in our hearts? We talked about this last night about the 15th of Sha'ban. This is the month. This is the time. This is the week. These are the days where we have to pray to Allah and beg Allah and cry to Allah. This is not the time to continue as usual. Business as usual is no longer the same. Allah is showing us that business as usual ends. It just doesn't end for Ramadan or Hajj, it's ending for good. A new world is coming, a new type of system is coming, meaning that you're going to have to become accustomed to changes. It's not going to be the same old life that we were going about. School systems are going to change. The way we travel, we change. The way we work will change. A lot of things are changing. So when we understand that the world is changing before us, why do we not change before that change happens to us? If we don't change our ways, change will occur on us, and that change that will occur on us may not be the change that we wanted in life. So, moving on, invocation against one's own children is not a good habit. Do not curse your children. No mother does so at a time of anger, but she will regret it later on after she has calmed down. I do not think that a mother who has truly sought the guidance of Islam would lose her mind and uh, her mind to such an extent that she would invoke against her own children no matter what they did. Such a woman would not allow herself to indulge in something that is done only by foolish, hot tempered women. So, what he's saying is when we succumb, men or women, and remember there's a book for the men separately, so for those who are joining first time, please do not assume that the author is just blasting on sisters. There's there's a book called The Ideal Muslim and The Ideal Muslimah. This one is about the Muslimah, the female woman, the female believers, but of course, there's one for the male believers also. And the same points are addressed from different angles. So, no mother really wants to curse their children. I'm sure you all agree. No one wants to curse their children, but it happens, it's said at a time of anger and frustration. And when that anger and frustration passes, of course, one feels remorseful. They should at that time ask Allah for forgiveness. Give a sadaqah, ask Allah for forgiveness, and ask Allah to not allow it to become true. These are things you need to do. As much as you become remorseful, put your money on it, make dua and cry to Allah, because the last thing you want is for that to actually happen. And we don't want that to happen to anyone. So may Allah protect our tongues, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect our tempers, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect our emotions. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. And then ask for apology from your children. They are not they're humans too. Say sorry. Say you got mad and you're sorry for it, because these steps will help you curve this issue from actually exacerbating and becoming a bigger problem. So this is a very important paragraph subject in the book about cursing. We're going to move on now, inshallah. She is alert to everything that may have an influence on them. This is a very important topic, and at the time that this book was written, I don't think cell phones were the norm. Cell phones were about in the 90s, but I don't think they were the norm. Of course, they were not the norm. Subhanallah, nowadays, many of us as parents don't even know where our children are, what our children are doing, who they're hanging around with, or what they're doing at home on their cell phones. We don't even have a clue. And what that does is that destroys the parent child relationship, and it destroys our ability to take full responsibility to ensure that we're protecting them and nurturing them. So over here we find that a mother's responsibilities to ensure she's alert about everything that may influence their child. The smart Muslim mother keeps her eyes open as far as her children are concerned. She knows what they are reading, what they are writing, their hobbies, activities they pursue, the friends they have chosen, and places that they go in their free time. She knows all of this without her children feeling that she is watching them. You should know these things without this overbearing feeling. You're not like Secret Service always walking around with them, but you should know. You should have this relationship with your child where they know that you care, and where you know what they're doing because you care. If she finds anything objectionable in their hobbies, reading material, etc., or if she sees them hanging around with undesirable friends, or going to unsuitable places, or taking up bad habits such as smoking, or wasting time and energy, or haram games that teach them to get used to trivial matters, she hastens to correct her children in a gentle and wise manner, and persuades them to return to the straight path. The mother is more able to do this than the father, because she spends more time with the children, and they are more likely to open up and share with their thoughts and feelings with her than with the father. Hence, it is quite clear that the mother has a great responsibility to bring up her children properly and form their characters in a sound fashion, in accordance with Islamic principles, values, and traditions. SubhanAllah. Very beautiful advice here. Number one, many of us are unaware that in our Muslim societies today, where our children are going in the name of Islam also, who they're hanging around with, what bad habits have become prevalent, smoking, vaping, jewels, hookah cafes are full of our Muslim kids and teenagers and young adults. These are bad practices. A very clear summary: bad practices. Bad practices that only help bad habits become worse. And when these bad habits become worse over time, it rubs off on the individual themselves, from their way of talking, their actions, their mindset. See, a mother knows her child because she's the one who's had the closest proximity to the child than anyone else. She nurses the child, she cares for the child. As this child grows up, within the first 5 years, you know their nature easily. Their likes, their dislikes, their attitude, what makes them mad, what makes them happy. When you see that attitude changing, that should raise an alarm and say to you, something ain't right here, something's really wrong. And it's at that moment that you help in positive reinforcement, not negative reinforcement. Shouting, screaming, cursing, threatening, this doesn't help. Because if you are to expose to your child that you know what they're doing, they're going to double down and make sure next time you don't even have a clue of what they're doing. It doesn't stop them from doing what they're doing. It just helps them change the method in which they were doing it. Now, we cannot, as parents, we don't have the ability or the time to be like a hawk and constantly like a drone over them watching what they're doing. But we need to have that sense. And Allah has given parents a sense. That sense is such that it allows you to realize something isn't right. And at that time, you should follow your gut feeling, as we say, and figure out what's not right. And when you do figure out what's right, not right, you help them get back to what's best, not to push them further away into it. Because anything negative said at that moment will only make them say, you know what? It's good I had friends. It's good that these people were right to me and my parents are wrong. And you just allow them to justify those actions and those people on a higher level. And you don't want to do that. Your goal is to delegitimize the people, the actions, the practices, the areas that your child is going to. So we have to be very careful, my dear brothers and sisters. It's not solely the children's fault, it's our neglect towards the children that they end up finding time with people that end up changing who they are. And these friend circles, the more influential, they're not more influential. It's not like they have a success degree in influencing people. What they do have is an ability to fill a void. And so the children who are easily manipulated is because they're more vulnerable, and they're more vulnerable or susceptible because that they never got that vulnerability addressed in their homes. So let's be very careful about these things and let's be real to each other. All our children are vulnerable to these things because we ourselves may not understand what's happening in the world. And that's a common complaint a lot of parents say. I don't know what's happening in the world. How can I protect my child? You don't need to know what's happening in the world. You need to know what's happening in your home. If you could create a strong enough environment in the home, they don't need to go out to the world. They don't need to go out to the world to what? To seek comfort and to seek a response. But if you don't have a conducive environment in the home, they'll look for the opportunity to run out and find what they're missing in the home. So the outside world will always change. What I know that you don't know, what you know that I don't know, is only a sliver of the real picture of what's happening out there. There's a whole dangerous world out there. And so you don't want your child, I don't want my child, none of us want our children to be in this position. And that is why we are reading this. And that's why we're addressing these matters. These matters are not addressed unless we purposely focus on these issues and we discuss how to bring forth a solution. The goal of this class, my fellow sisters, is to make stronger parents, to make stronger Muslims, which make stronger spouses, which make stronger parents, which make stronger homes. And when the homes are strong, it makes a society strong. When the society is strong, it makes the world strong. It's just a ripple effect of goodness. That's why books like these are what I love to focus my time and educating people on. And I educate myself also. We can pick up books of hadith and fiqh, and there's so many people already doing that. But in the absence of the true essence existing within ourselves, it doesn't come off good. It doesn't mold into us, it rather just sticks to us. You don't want knowledge to stick to you. You want knowledge to become part of you. And for that, we're trying to become that person that knowledge would love to incorporate itself into us, inshallah. And that our presence anywhere we go, especially our home, with our spouses, with our children, will only be more of a blessing on the current blessing itself. So he says here, every child is born in the state of fitrah. Fitrah means a natural good disposition of mankind. It is the parents who raise the child into a Jew, a Christian, or a Magian. The Prophet ﷺ said this in a hadith. So you know when people say child is bad, or it's a black sheep of the family, as people say these type of words, this is not true. Every child is born on fitrah. If you buy a phone or a car or a computer from the store, it has a factory setting. It is already set with, for example, half charge in a computer or phone. It has like basic settings, then it has an introduction, and then you could start making adjustments to the phone as you want. English or Spanish, this language or that language, this background, this theme, whatever you want, you can play with it then. But there is a base factory setting that this computer comes with. Yeah, if you were to buy it from someone else, chances are that those base settings would have not been there. But the base settings are always with you. Same with a car out of a showroom. Maybe a few miles have been driven for testing, whatever else, but it's a beautiful brand new car. The plastic hasn't even been removed from the chairs. It's so brand new. And so now the car actually learns with you as you go on, and how you put your foot on the brakes and on the accelerator, and how you handle the car. The car starts understanding you. It's computers nowadays. So subhanallah, if you understand that your child is born on factory settings, your child is born with fitrah, on the fitrah, means Allah created every child with the natural disposition to know Allah. If we don't work it and if we don't build it, فأبواه يهودانه أو ينصرانه أو يمجسانه. The hadith of the Prophet Muhammad is this: it's the parents. He didn't say it was a society. He didn't say it was a friend circle. Rasulullah said it's the parents that make them into Christian, Jews, or Magians, or worshippers of fire. What was the whole purpose of saying that? The thing was that it is in the presence of our effort that they become such, or it's in the absence of our effort they become such. Either we purposely make them into someone else, or we neglect them that they end up becoming someone else. Who did the Prophet ﷺ put the responsibility on? فَأَبَوَاهُ, the parents of the child. So we have a big responsibility. If you are a parent this afternoon listening, let it be known you and I have a responsibility. And for those parents who say, well, my child is grown up and they now have their children or they're married, your responsibility hasn't ended. This is again the Western mentality washing of our brains, that we feel that after 18 we can't say anything to them. You cannot say anything to them if you have been accustomed to a harsh method of training, and you realize now they are of an age that they are not going to respond to your harshness or threats. That's never supposed to have been the case. The case is that you're supposed to, as a parent, always be an advisor, a well wisher, and someone who can rectify their actions. Doesn't matter if you become a grandparent or a great grandparent, inshallah. You have to be sure that you're able to be the one who advises them, who teaches them, who straightens their path. Because at the end of the day, your parenthood responsibilities never go away. Never. So if your children are older than what you think that you wish that they are, and you would be able to help them, let it be known this afternoon your ability to help them had never ended. It doesn't matter if they're 5, it doesn't matter if they're 45. As a parent, you're still instrumental in their life. Don't forget that. So, moving on. There is no secret about the enormous impact that parents have on the personality and psychological development of their child from the earliest years until the child attains the age of maturity. Parents have the greatest impact on the children. The book that children read should open their minds and form their personalities well, giving them the highest examples to follow. They should not corrupt their minds and extinguish the light of goodness in their souls. Hobbies should be Hobbies should help to develop the positive aspects of a child's nature and reinforce good taste, not to encourage any negative tendencies. Friends should be the type that lead one to paradise, not to hell. They should influence a child in positive ways and encourage them to do good, to strive to improve himself or herself, and to succeed rather than drag him or her down into sin, disobedience, and failure. How many people have been brought to the slippery slope of destruction and perdition by their friends, whilst their mothers and fathers were unaware of what was happening by their own children, or to their own children, sorry. How wise are the words of the poet Adi ibn Zayd al-Ibadi concerning friends. I'm going to stop here. We want to talk about friends. I'm going to get there. Just give me a second, inshallah. So beautiful what the author said. He talks about books. I know many people don't even read books anymore. They should. The cell phone has taken over everyone's life. You should watch what books your children read. Just, you don't have to pull it away from them and start reading it. Look at the cover, Google it, and understand what the book is about. Because what your child reads speaks a lot about your child's mindset. If they are reading these devilish books that are out there, and Harry Potter is one of them, and truth be told, um, even the Catholic Church stated that they've banned Harry Potter because those spells are actually magical spells according to what they believe. Believe it or not, there are people of religion who feel that this contradicts the values of what we are about. So as a Muslim, ask yourself this question this afternoon: what am I about? What is my home about? What are we about? And if you understand that you've created a zone, that this is your territory, this is the territory of a believer, this is the territory of who we are as a family, anything that ventures outside of that is a red flag. That's like, no, this should not happen. So if you understand this mindset, understand that If your children are reading material or engaging in certain material, that material is helping to mold them in a positive or a negative way. And so be very meticulous about what they're reading. And since you cannot watch what they read anymore, because nowadays people hardly read books, then you have to make sure that you understand what sites on the internet they're engaging on and who are the people that they're hanging around with. Three categories: what they read, i.e., we could interpret that as cell phones nowadays. Number two, their hobbies. Every child should have a hobby. If they're playing or if they're doing some art or craft work, what's their hobbies? If they're drawing or they're painting, what is it that they're drawing and painting? If it emits darkness, it's a reflection of the darkness that exists within them. This darkness isn't evil. The darkness is a void. I want you to distinguish between the darkness of evil and the darkness of void. Everything that's dark isn't evil, na'udhu billah. The darkness Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about in the Quran, dhulumat, take them out of darkness into light, is the two types of darkness: the darkness of uncertainty, the darkness of weariness, the darkness of void in you, to light where you know. The Quran and Hadith came to tell us what you should know, who you should be, what you should do, what you should not do. It was a framework. So it took you out from the darkness of uncertainty and void into the light of know. I know and I will do. And there's also another type of darkness, and that's the darkness of the devil. That's the darkness of practices and ways and lifestyle where you know what you were doing, but those things that you were doing were dark, i.e., devilish, or they were appeasing to devil. The Quran and Allah's word has come to take people out from those type of darknesses also and bring them into light of better practices, better ways, better mindset, better goals, better purpose, and better outcome, inshallah. So what are the things that they read, or i.e. scroll, or i.e. are a part of? Number two, what are the hobbies? Look at those. If you cannot communicate with your child openly, let it be known that their hobbies, their dress, their ways all articulate what they're feeling and who they're becoming. It's not rocket science. Number three is their friends. Friends that become such that they are a detrimental aspect to the health and well-being of your child. How many times children can be in places doing things that can totally destroy them physically and spiritually, and parents don't even have the slightest clue. They don't even know where their child are. Do we know where our children are? We should. Doesn't matter how old they're becoming. If they're in your house, alhamdulillah, you have a responsibility to know where they are. This fact that children just get up and leave the house and come back when they want, Allah forbid something's happening during that time. You don't have to become overbearing on them and overprotective. Where are you going? What you doing? Tell me right now and shake them up. No, you should just know. It's only fair that as a parent you know what your child's doing, regardless if you're supporting them financially or they're supporting you financially. You're living in the same house. You should know what they're doing and where they're going. This level of transparency is at least called for. It's required. It should be required, because the last thing you want is phone calls of what your children are doing and places that your children have ended up. Now, we don't want that to happen to anyone's children. So regarding friends, Adi ibn Zayd wrote a beautiful poetry, which of course we cannot read and understand because the author only gave it to us in English. But he states, if you are amongst people, then make friends with the best of them. Do not make friends with the worst of them, lest you become as bad as they are. Do not ask about the man, but ask about their friends, for every person is influenced by their friends. SubhanAllah, this is so true. In past times when people used to look for someone for marriage for their child, they would there was an understanding in our cultural societies that they would want to know the people they hang around, because the people you hang around defines you. If you hang around with people who have bad habits and bad attitudes, know that that is already influencing them. So who are the people they hang around with? Just look into that. So the author writes, do not ask about the man, don't ask about the person, but ask about their friends, for every person is influenced by their friends. SubhanAllah. So it's a very big thing. We as human beings are influenced and we can influence. We can be influenced by others, and we can influence others. What are we doing? If we are with a certain group of people, what is our presence amongst them doing? You have to remember, you will be defined by your friendship circle. The true Muslim mother takes note of her children's books, magazines, hobbies, school, teachers, clubs, media interests, and everything that may have an impact on their personalities, minds, soul, and faith. How many of us know what our children watch? What their favorite show is, what they read, what their favorite book is, what their hobby is, what are the things they like spending time doing. Do we know our child that much? And I think it's only fair that we should. And if we do know, then we know that these are things that can either help them or hurt them. She intervenes when necessary, either to encourage or to put a stop to something, so that the child's upbringing will not be affected by corruption or sickness. Successful upbringing of children depends on a mother who is alert and intelligent and understands her responsibility towards her children, so that she does a good job and raises children to be a boon to their parents and society in general. At the end of the day, my fellow sisters, our children have to go out in the world. And at the end of the day, you know what the world is going to say? How did this person bring up their child? They're not going to say their friendship ruined them or their school environment ruined them. People always attribute a person's bad demeanor or success to their parents. And so when you and I realize that at the end of the day, the buck stops here on parents, why not do what we're supposed to do to make sure that we do the best in our part? If we do our best, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will absolve us today and tomorrow from responsibility. If we do our best, means we continue to do our best till death. And tomorrow Allah will absolve us from the responsibility, because He knows that we did our best. The question is, are we doing our best? When you understand that your child is going to go out to the world and impact the world, and the world will resort your success or failure. They will attribute your success or failure to the success or failure of your child. It's imperative that we step up and we do more than we currently are doing. Successful upbringing of children depends on a mother who is alert and intelligent and understands her responsibility towards her children, so that she does a good job and raises children to be a boon to the parents and society in general. Families that fail to raise their children properly usually do so because the mother does not understand her responsibility towards her children. She neglects them, and they become a source of evil and torment to their parents and others. So, what we are to learn as parents is to know our children. What we are learning as parents is to understand our children's lingo and their demeanor. And what we're trying to do as parents is to understand the bigger picture. We should not become naive. I understand for most of us it's a struggle because we didn't grow up in this way and we didn't grow up in this place. But that doesn't mean that we didn't have intelligent parents. Our parents, of course, were intelligent. They knew us. The least we should do is know our children. And the least we should do is be very meticulous over our children. When you have that concern, you have that motivation, you have that intention, Allah will fill in the blanks. Allah will help you through your instincts and intuition to know what's going on. But you have to do your part. We all have to. Today, our societies are failing across the globe because our homes are failing. Our homes are failing because our marriages are failing. Our marriages are failing because we as individuals have failed. And so there has to be a restart to this whole process. People are saying, let's make society better. You cannot make society better until you make the homes better. People are screaming, homes should be better. Yes, everyone knows how a home should be, but the home cannot be like that unless the parents are of that caliber. And the parents could only be of that caliber if they are of that caliber as a husband and a wife. And they can only be of that caliber as a husband and wife if they were good human beings and they're working on themselves. So this is a process of constant development. We are constantly developing ourselves as we develop our marriages, as we develop our children and our homes, as we develop our society. It's a constant wheel. It's not like, okay, I'm perfect now, my marriage is perfect now, my house is perfect now. They're not stages. They keep on streaming. So your personal development keeps on streaming, and then comes your marriage, and then comes your children, and then comes your home. But every single one of them, depending where their lines start, those lines still continue. Your personal development doesn't stop where your marriage starts. No, it continues going with it. It's a constant path. It's just that the path diversifies with time and with responsibilities. And with those times of responsibility, then we have to make sure we account to ourselves and we account to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Children would not become a source of evil if their parents, especially the mother, knew their responsibility and took it seriously. She instills good behavior and attitudes in them. This is the last paragraph or the last page before we go into the sixth chapter. The sixth chapter is now how to treat your daughters and sons-in-law. So again, recapping from this book, Alhamdulillah, we are on page 250. Alhamdulillah, we're on page 250. We went from developing your relationship with Allah, with your parents, with yourself, with your spouse, with your children. Allah, self, parents, spouse, children. 5 parts of the tree development. For those sisters who attend this class know what I'm talking about. The development of that tree has completed 5 parts. MashaAllah. Now we're going into the last 5 parts. In chapter 6, we'll talk about a Muslim woman interaction with her son-in-law and her daughter-in-law. Keep in mind, brothers and sisters, that this is a very important topic. Rarely do we see anyone talking about that. But before we start talking about that, let's finish off the chapter of children. Let's finish it off and ask Allah to really give us the ability to be better parents. Ameen Rabbil Alameen. No one's saying you're a bad parent. No one's saying you are not a parent. We're asking Allah to be better parents. So the good Allah's given us, we're asking Allah to increase that good and ask Allah to increase our effort, to increase our dedication and commitment to parenthood. Ameen Rabbil Alameen. So the last paragraph in that chapter is she instills good behavior and attitude in them. The Muslim woman tries hard to instill in her children's heart the best qualities, such as loving others, upholding the ties of kinship, caring for the weak, respecting elders, showing compassion to little ones, deriving satisfaction from doing good, being sincere in word and deed, keeping promises, judging fairly, and all other good and praiseworthy characteristics. See, if your child tomorrow becomes a caring, compassionate, loving person, this is your akhirah. This is, mashallah, as we call zakhira. This is your treasure for tomorrow because you've seen that they became humans. My dear brothers and sisters, the brothers who will watch, the sisters who are watching, our children, we want their success. There's no parent that wants their child's failure. You want them to go to the best schools and get the best degrees and get married to the best person and live in the best home. It's all good. It's all beautiful. It's good intentions. But if they don't have a good character, their education will not help them. If they don't have a good character, their marriages won't last. If they don't have a good character, their homes will be empty. If they don't have a good character, their children will leave them. If they don't have a good character, they will live and die a miserable life. So a mother's job, and I want fathers to also take account to this because when we do the ideal Muslim once a month in the Fajr time, inshallah, we'll restart that once we're back. The whole purpose is very simple. Reinstill the values in yourself so that you can incorporate them and also inherit them to your children, that your children inherit these good values from you. So again, upholding ties of kinship. How many families were so tight when they were growing up? Today they're so scattered. Cousins and nephews and nieces and aunts and uncles. Why does that happen? Because that level of teaching was not instilled in those children. You need to uphold this. It wasn't a blessing for that time. It was a blessing to continue beyond that time. Number 2, caring for the weak, respecting elders. Caring for the weak has become like, I'm better than you, so I'll give you money. Nowadays, that's become the norm. It's so sad. And I'm not saying everyone's doing that, but it's becoming a norm in society. You care for someone because you feel like you're a god, you're better, that you can help someone. Number 2, respecting elders. Where's the respect? There's no respect for elders anymore. There's no respect when it comes to how we address them, how we speak to them, how we raise our voice or lower our voice, or how we value their presence. That's why you have in this society the elderly move out and live their life. Why? Because the society has devalued them. And na'udhu billah, having an elder in the home, the one the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah feels ashamed to reject the prayer of a person who's elderly in white hair or white beard and they're crying to Allah. Allah feels shy, Allah feels ashamed. It's just a metaphorical statement that Allah would reject that person's prayer. Imagine having someone of that nature in your homes praying to Allah, that Allah's answering, that their du'as stay with you and your children. It's a very important thing that we don't have in our societies anymore, unfortunately. Being kind, being tolerant, loving, and fair, these are all these qualities that you want. The wise Muslim woman knows how to reach her children's hearts and instill these worthy qualities using the best and most effective methods, such as setting a good example, coming down to their level, treating them well, encouraging them, advising and correcting them, being compassionate, being kind, being tolerant, being loving and fair. She is gentle without being too lenient and is strict without being harsh. This is a problem that's missing in our families today. Either parents are so strict that they're harsh, or they're so lenient that they say we're our children's friends. You're not your children's friends. You are your children's parents. They don't need you to be their friends. They need you to be their parents. They can find friends, but they can't find another parent. This is a very big problem. I remember I performed the nikah in Florida, and the mother got up to the stage and she gave a speech and she says, my daughter's my BFF, and they're just laughing and like, I'm gonna miss her so much, but I'm gonna text her every night and morning. You're not your children's friends. Wake up, snap out of that. You don't need to feel that I need to be my child's friend for my child to love me. Your child doesn't love you as they love their friends. That love and relationship with their friends is about fun and games and happiness and temporary fun. But what's at the love of the home is different. It's about nurturing, it's about building, it's about sustaining, it's about making them. It's a whole different relationship. So don't get swayed away by saying, oh, they have a relationship like this with their friends, I wish they had that relationship with me. No, build that relationship that you have. It's a unique one. They will not find other parents, remember that. They will find many friends, but they will not find anyone else to be their parents. So to be lenient, but not to the extent that to be gentle is important, but not to be lenient, and to be strict, but not to be harsh. This is a very good balance. Thus, the children receive a proper upbringing and grow up open minded, mature, righteous, sincere, good, able to give, and prepared to make a constructive contribution in all aspects of life. Not surprisingly, the Muslim mother's upbringing produces the best results. For she is the first school, the first teacher. As a poet said, the mother is a school. If you prepare her properly, you will prepare an entire people of good character. The mother is the first teacher, foremost amongst them, and the best of teachers. So, my dear sisters, Alhamdulillah, we have within us the qualities. We have, mashallah, within us the abilities. We have, mashallah, within us all the great things. We just need to create the balance of the time we're giving, the approach we're using, the temperament that we are known for within our children, and to really love this. Don't hate this. Parenting is despised in our world today. People feel that if you're a parent, you're a slave of your home. Being a parent, being a housekeeper, being someone who builds the home, a home builder, is the best thing anyone could do in this world. It's the best thing anyone could ever ask for. You know why? Because you may not be able to shine bright on your own if you are out there, but Allah has given you the opportunity through your children to shine to the world for generations to come. And let them inherit this to their children. So your life, your legacy will shine on beyond your temporary life of 40, 50, 60 years, whatever it may be, after you have those children. So keep in mind, my fellow sisters, this is very deep and important teachings, and I hope you, if you join late, listen to this class again, because it talked about some really core and raw topics when it comes to parenting. And there's There's nothing to hide in Islam when it comes to this. I want to share one story and I want to then ask all of you, please, do you have any questions or thoughts? Love to hear from all of you because we used to have our class with salam and talk and questions before we started to kind of set the stage. And I know you all are listening attentively, and for those who cannot join, will be joining us later. A few of the sisters reached out to me and said that to keep the class on a practical time level because for those of us who are overwhelmed with so much happening at home and the children's being at home now, and of course with all the additional responsibilities, an hour and a half class is just too much to catch up on. So I promised a sister last week, I said, okay, we'll just keep it to 1 hour so long you can revisit this video and you can watch it and you can benefit from it. I totally understand the psychology of looking at a video and saying, I'm not going to watch that for an hour and a half. So we will cap on an hour today, and I think want to continue doing that so that the people who missed it can actually get back and watch it. An hour seems fair, an hour and a half or more does not seem practical. So I appreciate your candidness and your openness to tell me how we should interact here. Of course, this is not an in-person class where we can be in a setting and the time can pass and we can discuss, and it's really a beneficial gathering. This is just talking into a screen and you are watching from a screen. So I know sometimes it feels really superficial. So I thank you, regardless of the challenges. You have committed your time this afternoon and you've listened. So again, for those who've listened, let's expand the conversation. For those who joined late or who only could hear a part, go back and watch this again. And for those who missed it totally, please do watch this video and take lessons from it. This author, mashallah, I really applaud him. And what he's done is he's really set the standard. He's created a foundation. None of us are perfect. I'm the first one to express that. I'm not perfect. So we all look for a foundation of how to be better and how to build ourselves. And he provided that in the Islamic sphere when not many have provided with such depth. In one book, he's covered your relationship from all angles. And as I said, we've covered you and Allah, you and yourself, you and your parents, you and your spouse, you and your children. We are going now to other parts of building yourself. So I want to end with this story and then open up for questions once more. Is that there was a school teacher who had asked their children, who do you want to be when you grow up? It was a very simple question. She asked the children, who do you want to be when you grow up? And so the children wrote that down. It was part of this test, and they all wrote down. These were small children, maybe first graders, second graders, and this is in the back home country. And they all wrote it, and she took the work home to mark. And when she was at home and she was marking the work, and she was laughing at some, and she was smiling at some, her husband was observing her and she started crying, and she cried profusely, and he asked her, why is she crying for? So she explained to him that she had asked a question in class, who do you want to be when you grow up? And all the children wrote down different answers, and this child wrote down a very heartbreaking answer. He said, what did the child write? She said the child wrote, when I want to grow up, I want to be a cell phone. And the question was, what do you want to be when you grow up? Answer, why? The question is, what and why? And so the child wrote down, I want to be a cell phone. And when the question was asked why, he wrote, because my parents will spend more time with me. Now, she cried, and her husband, of course, consoled her and said to her, you know what? It's a tough job that you're doing. You're teaching these children, and you know what? Maybe we can help the family. She said that the child that wrote this was our child. It was her own child that was in her class that wrote this. So, my fellow sisters, tonight, this afternoon, this evening, this week, with Ramadan coming up, let's ask ourselves. Let's be real to ourselves. What is holding me back from my family? There's something holding us back. We all have the same amount of time in the day, right? If you wake up at 5 in the morning, go to sleep at 10 at night, that gives you how many hours? That gives you 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 hours. Okay, you got 17 hours in the day. We all have the same amount of time. The question is, where am I allocating my time? Granted, you have to go to work. Granted, you have responsibilities. Granted, there's chores and duties in the home. Granted to all that. But really, where's my time going? So, al-kayyisu man dana nafsa, the Prophet ﷺ said, the smart person is who takes themselves to account. I want us all, myself included, I know this is a sisters class, but if the brothers are listening, I want them to join me in asking ourselves today, take yourself to account. Even though, granted, a lot of work is being done on the phone and on the computers, but we have to know how to separate. So, what I've done for the computer, for example, when I get on the computer to do my research and preparing my Masih to Messiah slides or whatever else classwork I'm doing, which I'm getting the time now to actually enhance it and increase the quality of it, what I do is that I don't plug in my computer. So within 2 hours max, if my battery is dying, I close it, put it on charger, and I get up and I leave. Because if I'm working with a thing constantly charged, I will never get up. So we have to ask ourselves, where can I be better? No one is saying you are wrong. No one is saying I am wrong, because that's not the way that we'll fix ourselves. We're just asking ourselves, where can we be better? And so I ask of you today, let's put ourselves to account and ask ourselves, where can we be better? Al-kayyisu man dana nafsahu wa amila lima ba'da al-maut. A person who takes themselves to account and prepares themselves for the time after death is the right type of mindset we need to have. So I call on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive myself and all of us who are here today and all of us who will listen after and all of their families. May Allah forgive our shortcomings. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive our negligence. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive our ignorance. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enlighten us, empower us, make us kind-hearted people that will do best for ourselves, our families, our children. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. And again, we're gonna break this down from the 12:30 to 1:30, giving yourself time to get back with your children. And of course, I know we're missing a lot of sisters. I totally agree with the sisters who sent their sentiments to me. It's just too long with the responsibility at home. It doesn't make sense. And even if we want to watch it after, it doesn't make sense to watch something that long because it's taking more time away. So we'll keep it to 1 hour, inshallah, until we get back in person, where we'll do it for an hour and a half as we were doing it before. So jazakumullahu khairan to all of you. Anyone have any questions? Sorry, before we cut off. Anyone have any questions, thoughts, concerns? You can type it. Just press on the YouTube screen. There's a chat box on the bottom. You just press on the chat box and you can type anything. So I'll give a minute or so. Anyone have any questions, any thoughts? Feel free to ask, because this is one of the things that the sisters class is unique for, that you get a chance to interact with your imam and ask the questions you may not have the opportunity to otherwise. So if anyone wants to ask a question or share a thought or concern or share some ideas or tips on parenting, please feel free to go ahead and type that, inshallah. And mashallah, while you're typing, just a recap on yesterday's discussion last night. We're fasting today, we're fasting tomorrow, we're fasting Thursday, inshallah. We are going to worship tonight and tomorrow night and the night after, especially tomorrow night, because it's Laylatul Shabi Barat, as they would say in Urdu, or Laylatul Nisf Sha'ban. It's the half of Sha'ban, the 15th night, an auspicious night, a night that is authentically proven by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The practices will be to do what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did, is to worship Allah in seclusion, to build that relationship with Allah, to gain His forgiveness and to reap from His treasures. We will fast not because it's a special day to fast, we'll fast because it's the 3 days of the white days. Tonight, according to reports I read this morning, it's going to be the biggest moon of 2020. So if you get a chance right after Maghrib, look for the moon, inshallah, and enjoy the rise of a beautiful moon that will, inshallah, be remembered for this year. So stay safe, everyone. Stay healthy. If you don't have any questions, it's perfectly fine. My salams to your families. Stay strong. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you in your efforts, and may Allah make it a means of goodness for you in this world and the next. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Take care, and inshallah we'll see you soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, sorry, we have a question. How can you shorten the missed witr fard prayer if there's any concessions? If you've missed a prayer, farad or witr, and it was missed while you were not a traveler, it has to be done full. If I missed a prayer while I was flying in a plane and that prayer time finished, just say I missed Dhuhr prayer, and when I got back to Dallas it was Asr, I make up the Dhuhr prayer that I missed on the plane 2 rak'ah, because when it started and when it ended, that prayer time, I was a traveler. We always look at the end When that time of prayer ended, what was the state you were in? We all are in either of two states. We are muqim, which means in our hometowns, non-travelers, or we are travelers. If you're a traveler at the time that the prayer ended, you make up that prayer as a traveler, which is for Dhuhr, Asr, and Isha too. If you are not a traveler, then you have to make up the full prayer. The difference is you won't make up the sunnahs and nafil. If you missed prayers, you'll make up two for Fajr, four for Dhuhr, four for Asr, three for Maghrib, and for Isha, according to the Hanafi school of thought, is the four Isha, Farad, and the three Witr, inshallah. I hope that answers your question, inshallah. So yeah, the concession is not to shorten to make up. And as I said last night to someone who had asked, if you want to make up the prayers, first create an understanding of how many days, weeks, months, or years that you've missed. Put together a number. And then for that many years, pray the prayer on time that you're praying today. Like it's going to be Dhuhr time in a few minutes. You pray Dhuhr 4 rak'ah in your sunnah, and then pray 4 rak'ah, make up for a past Dhuhr. So if you missed a month's worth of prayers, inshallah, within a month, you will be doing your regular prayers and you would have made up your past prayers also. So do it gradually, inshallah, and do it consistently. Inshallah, that will be helpful for you to make up those prayers. Inshallah, I hope that answers your question. Jazakallah khair for interacting. It sounds so good when someone asks a question. I feel weird sometimes just talking into a camera, and we do online classes. Of course, we've always been doing online classes. I used to teach, mashallah, at Mishka University online. So, but that was like an hour a week, and everything else was personal interaction. Many of us had a meeting every Monday. The clergy of Dallas has a meeting. We talk, and we realize that it's so tough to do everything Wayakum, just online. We're used to our zone, the masjid, the classroom, the mimbar, the people. It's tough. But alhamdulillah, your du'as are making it easier. Your du'as are making us get better at this. Our lighting is getting better. My lights are doing a great job here. So alhamdulillah, pray for them and pray for the light and pray for all of us, inshallah. Take care, keep smiling, be happy, inshallah. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala keep you happy in this world and the next. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.